All right. Welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. And today my guest is Julianne Reynolds, who is an award-winning international documentary filmmaker and photographer. She focuses on creating films about social causes like gender inequality and environmental issues. Julian and I have known each other for many years now, and we met at a festival called Bhakti Fest in the desert in California. I knew her as a filmmaker, and we all sort of scrambled to navigate our way in that interesting environment. Maybe we'll even talk about that. That would be fun. But some of the films that she's made around the divine feminine, and that's kind of what she's known for in the yoga community, are really beautiful. And I wanted to have her on the podcast because I actually haven't had very many filmmakers on here. So I'm excited to get that visual perspective and welcome her to the Inspired Podcast community. So here we go. All right. Hey, Julianne.
Hi, thanks. Thank you for having me on today. It's great to see you. It's been a while, and yeah, we did meet at Bhakti Fest. I hate to say like 15 years ago. I think it's like
Yeah, I didn't, off the top of my head, I could not really
yeah,
count, but yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
15 years ago,
Were you
and
the first one?
I did the first Bhakti Fest. Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure if we met there, but I was probably aware of you. I think I saw you filming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would say I moved to Los Angeles with the attention, a very Neptunian idea about being an actress, right?
Oh,
And but I was always a born artist. I was a painter. I got most artistic in high school. I wanted to go to art school in New York City, but my parents wouldn't let me go because they felt that would not direct put me in the right direction. So I had to go to a regular college, the University of Georgia, and study business and economics, but I also studied photography, and later on I studied film. So
you were an econ major?
yes, yeah, yeah. I know.
Oh, I would have never guessed that. That's amazing. Did you complete that?
Yeah, it was a struggle. It took me 5 years to finally graduate from the University of Georgia, because when I first got there, I was completely lost. I mean, I was fumbling around, wondering what I was doing there. Being from New Jersey, it was a completely different atmosphere, beautiful campus. And so it took me a while to find my way there. And just like high school, you have your groups of people, you have your theater people. I was more one of those theater type of people. Like, I wasn't a very outgoing person, but I did do cheerleading because my brother was in football, but I hated it. So I did it for my mom. So in anyways, when I got to Georgia, they had an amazing photography department and I loved it. So I studied photography there, and they had a film department, but I didn't have the mindset then to study film, because I grew up in a very conservative place, conservative family, and you really didn't steer off from a certain mindset of who you were supposed to be. So underneath me was this other hidden part. So it took me moving to Los Angeles, and I I was studying acting because I had been studying it in New York City, and that's when I started getting my film hat on. Um, I was taking film classes at a local school here in New Jersey. It was soon after I had been sick for like 3 years. I had gotten Lyme's disease and I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk. And so I just watched movies all the time. And I thought, wow, I really want to tell stories. And then once I started getting more mobile, I got a job at a local school in the library there, and I just read all the books on film and acting, and I thought maybe this is really the path I'm supposed to be on. And it's like the threshold of the hero's journey, right? Like, maybe this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. So in any event, so that along the way, stumbling, on the path, I ended up in Los Angeles, and I got like a small part on some soap opera, but I decided that wasn't for me. Like I didn't have the desire that you really needed to succeed at something like that. And I also didn't have the confidence. So, and I was aware of that. And so at the time, I had started a small digital firm with some people from ABC Sports, and we were working with Paramount Pictures. And my friend lent me her camera, and I wanted to learn filmmaking to help with some of the advertising in my office. And I had some interns.
Is that what the firm was? Is it was an advertising firm?
This is, like 15 years ago or more than that. This is prior to um, the upstart of digital advertising. So we were the first people to work
Oh,
with Paramount Pictures and to put digital
oh.
platform screens and advertise their movies. So I wasn't overly passionate about it, but it was interesting, and I had the big dollar signs in my head. And I thought, wow, like if this really works out and we sell this company, I'm going to be so rich. And then I can find out who I am or follow my passions. So push comes to shove. My friend let me her camera, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about filmmaking because we had some editors helping us cut the content. And I really liked their vibe. Like they were very creative, thinking outside of the box. That, I had been on a few film sets, Hollywood film sets, and I'm not throwing this as a judgment, out to the wind, but a lot of the producers to me were I was unable to connect to them on a soul level, right? And they were very much, treated me as if I was below them as a human being. Like, and I was such a creative person and so hungry to express my creativity. So anyways, I took the camera out and I started filming, and I just never stopped. And then I ended up Bhakti Fest. And I think that moment of filming I think it was a confluence and a combination of finding both my passions, which is the visual passion, the filmmaking, the storytelling, how to tell it visually. And then prior to Bhakti Fest, I'd been in a yoga teacher training for 3 years with Shiva Ray and Saul David Ray. And so I'd been also traveling all throughout the United States assisting him. I'd been to India filming. So it was like the universe, I was so true to what my heart and soul wanted to express. So, and that's how I ended up combining my passion for consciousness, yoga, also healing, and creating stories around it. And I remember at the time, the company I'd started fell apart, and like on the hero's journey, you have to have these thresholds where you lose everything, right? You lose all your money, you lose your job, you lose your identity, and then you're stuck with nothing, right? And then you have to really show up to the universe. Like, okay, I really am passionate about this filmmaking, this documentary filmmaking, and I want to tell these stories. And I want to tell these stories because I not only want to learn about myself and transform, but I know this is like, I want to help other people. I want to be in service to something bigger than me. And so I remember like writing with lipstick on my mirror, like the last night before I left my apartment, I put yoga and film. That's what I want to do. So, and it's been an interesting journey, and there's been a lot of different thresholds and challenges to meet parts of myself that I might not have found before, like the parts of me that are hidden, like, confidence has always been a struggle for me. I think a lot of artists probably might struggle with that if they weren't brought up in a family that taught them how to appreciate what their gifts are,
Yeah.
and
I wanted to ask a question too.
yeah.
You went by it, but So when you came to Bhakti Fest, did you come as a filmmaker for Saul, or did you come from Sridhar, the producer?
I met Sridhar through Saul, and
Oh,
he
gotcha.
hired me. Yeah,
Oh,
he
gotcha.
hired me.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that first Bhakti Fest changed my life. It did.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. I filmed everything and I photographed everything. It was just such a magical experience. It was a threshold.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, to learn an art form, you can't intellectualize it. You have to do it, because that's how you never really master it, because you're evolving with your art form. Whether it's music or writing or film or photography. To me, it's an infinite space for endless parts of yourself to be explored, and that can be daunting and scary too, and then and vulnerable. Like, it's an intimacy with your soul in a way.
Yeah. Coming
Yeah.
back to that confidence thing, it's so funny because I went to my first like major concert. I went to an Alicia Keys concert the last week, and I'd never been to like a like top 40 like concert. I've always
Oh,
gone to like smaller artist concerts, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
went to it and like watching her, I was like, holy shit, like God, when I come back next time, can I come back with that much confidence? Like it was just her confidence level is just off the charts. It's like oozing from her. It's crazy. And what's really interesting is that she's not really, I mean, she's special in the sense that she's a human being, and I think we're all special, but there are
Yeah.
so many people who are as talented, if not more talented than she is, but she just owns who she is so beautifully. So it like kept reflecting back to me. It's like no matter what you have, you can have that much confidence about who you are. It has nothing to do with, with how quote unquote good you are. It's like it's
Right.
about how you feel about yourself. It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. It's pretty
How
cool.
inspiring, right? Yeah. There's two for me. When I see somebody's overconfident, there's two levels of my being that come. One, it's the jealousy part, like, "God, they're so confident," right? And that doesn't last long, right? And then there's like, how did they get to that level of confidence, and how can I, through my own process of understanding who I am, love myself enough to get to that level of confidence? And why haven't I met this? Why am I not at that place at the age I'm at? Right. And so that's probably been a huge part of my spiritual path. And I don't know if this is correct about performers, because I don't get on the stage and perform a lot, though I've been on the stage as an actress.
Yeah.
But I think when you love your why, like, why am I doing this? And it's like you're a dancer or a singer and you're on stage, the natural essence of you comes out. And sometimes it might look like confidence, because you've done it so much. And sometimes I think it's just because you're so connected to that why and that desire of what you're doing. Like, you
Yeah.
just love it so much. And not everybody, I don't think, is going to have that experience in this lifetime without hard work. And
Yeah.
I bet you Alicia Keys works her ass off. I
Oh,
imagine she does.
she definitely does. But
Right.
what the sense that I got from her though is that that was not like she has, because everybody has their issues. But
Right.
I don't think that it seemed to me anyway from the outside, and I could be totally wrong, but it seems like that's something she kind of nailed from the womb. And there's other things that she is working.
I'm
That's not
sure.
the one.
You know what I also find interesting with actors and actresses, and I made a documentary about this one particular dancer. Off the stage, very humble, very quiet, didn't say anything, but on the stage, she was a like a completely different person. You wouldn't even know it was the person you saw backstage.
Oh,
So I always find that interesting. I've also known from the acting world that a lot of actors will sometimes throw up before they get on stage because they
really?
get so nervous. Well, Jane Fonda has talked about this, and I one of the biggest fears in people's lives is talking on stage. It's written in books, right? And so I think as an actor, even before you go on stage, it's different in a book because you're not putting your face to it, right? But she said that she's like, you want all your chakras to line up, right? And so that you become the channel. I think it works as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a musician. You want all the chakras to line up so this energy can be channeled through you,
Yeah.
right? Like you want it, it's like the information, or you could call it the muse is there, to do, channeling through you to show the gifts that you're here to offer to the
Totally.
world. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense though that people fear public speaking so much. So I'm just imagining this from like just our kind of our reptilian brain. Like you put somebody on a stage and there's like thousands of people in front of them. I mean, you could say the wrong thing and quite literally you could be dead. I mean, if people
Oh
were
yeah.
angry enough at what you were talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, Dave Stringer, he's another Bhakti Fast Kirtan artist.
Yeah.
And one thing I remembered on a short documentary I made about him was that he used to have anxiety, or I don't want to quote him exactly, but chanting. And he said it wasn't until I understood to look at the people and to connect with them that he got out of the way of that again,
Mm.
asking the biggest question of the why you're so passionate about the divineness of chanting the divine words, of the bhakti. I mean, that's one way of saying it. Yeah. Like the ego gets out of the way and then the soul starts to unfold in all its, its messages, and we're all kind of trying to walk each other home at one level or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So,
What are you working on currently?
well, I'm always working on a lot of different things, but I I've been a diligent student of yoga for a very long time, and there's many pathways to yoga and many different sectors to it. Years ago, it's now about 12 years ago, I was initiated into a Shakti tradition, a Sri Vidya Tantra lineage. And that lineage has a lot to do with worshiping Shakti, the divine feminine, the female goddess. And it doesn't mean that the male energy isn't present. It's just as an essential for it. And so I had worked on this film for a while, and I went to India like 3 or 4 times filming about like who is the divine mother, who is the mother. And part of my seeking, I think, was trying to discover myself through it as well. Right. And I know it's a lot of Westerners travel to India seeking the
Oh, go ahead. No, I muted myself.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to wait till you sneezed. Yeah. I know a lot of Westerners and people travel to India seeking consciousness, seeking healing, seeking the discovery of who they truly are, breaking down all the different masks that we have to wear. So in any event, so I've been working on this film and, as an independent artist and working on a variety of different projects. I'd been to Africa. I was working on a film about regenerative farming. I worked on 3 other documentaries. I made a documentary about Odissi dance from India. I made a documentary about musicians from India. Odissi dance. It's a temple dance of India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do you
And
spell that?
Odissi. Odissi dance. So originally, pre British colonization, we'll call it, and also the Muslims actually invaded India. India is known for its extravagant culture and its deep, rich culture, and it's temples. I don't know if you've ever been to India, but the temples are beautiful. They're gorgeous temples. And so back in the days, they were these Devi Dasis. They were women dressed in the beautiful saris. And back then, some of them, they didn't even have tops on. I mean, they were, it was like free, there wasn't all this taboo against sex in the women's body. Everything was looked at as sacred, right? And so they would dance in the temples to the gods and goddesses, and there's, in the Indian mythology, there's many gods and goddesses, two main, the Shiva is considered like the male form god, and there's Shakti, and then you have Durga, Parvati, you chant the names, so you understand. And so these Devi Dasis would dance in the temples, and they had these like very sacred dances. And there's actually there's a few documentaries about it and books about it. And then the British came in and they colonized it, and they took the dance and they I don't know, they change it into a different art form. And so there are a lot of Westerners traveled to India to study this Odissi dance. It's a very, very sacred dance. There's a lot of offering to the gods, and it's like you're doing, I don't know if you know what a puja is. It's like a sacred, Hindu ceremony. It's like doing a puja to the gods. And so you work with the elements like fire, air, water, and you move your hands in a certain way, and you do certain mudras, and the body moves in a certain way. And so anyways, I made a documentary about that. I also traveled to the border of Pakistan and lived in a village with the Langa musicians and made a documentary about that in India. So I've done a lot of travel and met a lot of tribal communities, which is a passion of mine, because I feel like with modernization and the cross-pollination of Western ideas coming into some of these Eastern countries, that it's starting to water down some of this ancient wisdom, which I think is really potent right now. And people are really seeking this more earth-based these earth-based technologies. And you can see it even in here in the United States, a lot more people are wanting to live off the grid, learning about regenerative farming and ecology and the biodiversity and how we can save that, right? And that's a huge passion of mine, right? And it's like we're all trying to heal this disconnection from ourselves. But once you realize how connected you are to yourself, you realize how you're connected to the earth and everything else. And then you start to serve that bigger energy. So anyway, so I started making this documentary about seeking the mother and what the mother really is, like this energy of the mother, because I grew up in the United States and we had Mother Earth, but it's a very patriarchal, male-dominated ideology. And I grew up in a Catholic family, and the Catholic Church like had very little about the divine feminine. And so I felt so disconnected from my own divine feminine and my own like even sexuality and my own inner sacred feminine. And I was probably living so disconnected. And once I started realizing how sacred, life is, and I am, I just kept going back to India and seeking the answers to these. So I'm actually working on 2 other projects. I'm going to go back to India this December, January, and February, and work on 2 other projects, and all around the Tantra, the Divine Mother, the sacredness of life, the sacred Odissi dance, the power of Shakti. And there are temples, like there's all these sacred temples in India, these tantric, ornate, interesting, taboo-esque temples. There's one in Khajuraho, which is northern India, and I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of the women. They're all naked women and these body movements, and all the temples were built
Like
during a time.
statues of them or actual women?
Oh, actual women and men.
Oh,
These are tantric temples. Yeah. And beautiful sculpture temples that were built, but it's like all sacred geometry orientated, and the way they built some of the temples is that a man and woman can sit on this sacred geometry and do their breathing together and chant mantras, like just Om, and the way it echoes in the room, the way it was built, it has a frequency and it vibrates and it opens up all the chakras so that the higher energies can come in and the ego starts to dissipate. And then you start to feel this other, like you call it the Kundalini energy, the sacred Shakti start to move through the body. And you sometimes you can have awakenings in these situations. And these type of temples still exist in India. So yeah,
That's
that's a
really,
lot of information.
yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That, yeah, no, I really, I love hearing about this because I started getting involved in this kind of Mary Magdalene community. I took a little bit of a break, but um, for this one author that I'd been following for a while, and one of the things that she brought to my attention, which I guess I kind of knew, but you know how you like know things and then you like know them again when you grow a little bit more, is
Yeah.
that, you know, we, as a Western culture especially, I think we value so much like the written word and like the scholarly word, but like there's so much history in the actual like culture when you start to actually talk to people and learn about what they believe in, whatever, that it's not, that you can't get from a history book or, you know, whatever. So it sounds like a lot of the conversations you're having are things that we couldn't maybe go on the internet and find out about, or yeah.
It's funny you say that because in Khajuraho, there's a man who studied with Osho, and I know he's kind of a well-known politically, a Tantra teacher, but he lives in Khajuraho and he's got hundreds of years of history. So when you go to some of these temples and you meet these people, you just be sitting there having a little chai, and they tell you something that you can't have that experience living in Los Angeles at Starbucks in Santa Monica. And I mean, I don't know about you. I know your life is very homebound because you have children and travel is different. I'm an independent female artist, but travel to me is a way to evolve as a human being, and venturing into different cultures teaches you so many different layers of humility, non-judgment, that we're all connected. We all are the same, and I know COVID did that for a lot of people. And then, now we're on the like post-COVID. So we're all moving back into our slots again. But travel always says that to me, especially when you go to like a third world country and people live very menial, like they don't have the washer and dryer and the air conditioner, they're going out to the fields and picking their food and cooking it that night. It's a different mental acuity. And the word abundance and wealth is redefined by connection and community instead of dollar signs. And so that's been a huge lesson for me, as an artist, is how to weave through all that and stay true to myself, straight to the story and the art, but then live in a Western society where you really do have to be in it, and you have to make money, and you have to plan things, very a left brain type of mentality. I like to be more on the right brain, but you have to balance the both. And so everything in the world is balanced. Like the male and female energies need to be balanced in the world. And I personally feel, it's just from my perspective as an artist, that there's an unbalance in our world right now.
Yeah.
It's a very patriarchal, masculine based type of world.
Yeah.
And I think there is this wave and this energy where people really want that balance. It's like a soul, like the collective soul calling.
Yeah.
And because I feel it, I know I'm not alone, because I keep, meeting other people who see that in me and I see it in them. And those are the people that I really desire to collaborate with on projects. So I am collaborating with two other people, on two other film projects in India, and continuing with my film on seeking the divine mother and what is the divine mother.
What does
And
a collaboration look like in that? Is it two other filmmakers, or are they doing some other?
oh yeah, good question. Okay, so the one collaboration are these two women. They're artists, Both of them are from the Shakti tradition, which is like worshiping the divine mother, right? It's a very female. So it's going to be, I think about 15 or 20 women. And we're going to be traveling to these female goddess temples and doing rituals and practices all about awakening the energy inside the body, clearing the blockages, and seeing your body as divine, and all of it, like your breast, your eyes, your vagina, which is called the yoni, your toes, right? Your mind, your consciousness, all as divine, as being used in a positive and peaceful and loving way. And so, and I always felt when you get a group of women together, something happens, right? You know, it's just this weaving of that powerful Shakti energy. And then the other project is working with a world-renowned tantric teacher who teaches from the Osho tradition. And this would be going to the temples of Khajuraho and meeting with a guide, again, who I was telling you that's lived in Khajuraho for his whole life, and his family has. So he has channeled information, and like a lot of the way they teach in India isn't books. So much is learned by just sitting around a fire and people telling you stories. It's very mythical, story-based learning there, right? And so who knows what information he's going to offer us on that. And so that will be a separate docu-series on that. It's you know, they already did some filming of him pre-COVID, and then COVID came, so you know, very few people were traveling. So now I think everybody's like ready to like put their bootstraps on and get out there. And so it'll be interesting because I haven't been to India in 4 years because of COVID. And then prior to that, I went to Africa to work on a documentary in Zimbabwe and in Kenya about regenerative farming and cattle grazing and biodiversity. Wow. So, yeah, the same thing, right? It's all about the mother and about the earth and co-creating and how we're disconnected, and the more we can stay connected. And I think, I feel like we're in a society too where the pain is, it's the collective pain, and it's like you have your own personal pain you have to, you know, heal in your life, you know, whether there, you know, whether it's like a death of a family member or a death of a relationship or a death of a part of yourself that's not working for you anymore, right? Like when we were talking about confidence, like what blocks your confidence? It's usually a lack of self, right? It's usually self-worth. So you have to work on what are the blockages to your self-worth. And when those parts of yourself start to die, there's pain. There is some level of pain with that, right? Of a pet dies, you know, of your favorite tree dies, you know, whatever it can be, right? And so that's why I think community is so essential, and music is so helpful in all of that. You know, a lot of, you know, you're a musician, you know how helpful that is in your transformation, and you have that beautiful healing voice that you know can transform somebody's day, you know. So yeah.
Okay, so I have this like buzzing question because, and I'm not sure how you feel about answering this, but when you talk about the divine feminine and we hear about the collective pain and stuff, how do you think like because there's, and I'm not sure if it's a trend that's emerging or if it's a trend that's just being kind of come out of the closet, whatever, of people who don't really identify with either, or they say that they don't, with, you know, woman or whatever, like, how does that factor into how you think about the divine feminine, or like how does that factor, I guess, into how you think about that topic?
You know, it's an interesting topic because I think this has been brewing for a while, and I think now that we're moving into like this post-technology, post-modern culture, like I don't even know what type of culture it is right now, and there's a lot of non-genders. Like my goddaughter's a non-gender. She's a she, but you can't say she. You have to say we. And I just was on Fire Island. It's a very like gay community there. And I loved it. Like I felt like, oh, that's my tribe, right? I love non-genders. It's like my tribe. And I also love just being a woman. That's my tribe. I love men. That's my tribe, right? Like it's all one. However, if you take away the physical body and you start to see everything as energy, the body in yoga, right, which is union. Yoga means union. It means yoking with oneself, right? And so in the yoga system, in the tantra system, which is also tantra is about weaving, right? Many definitions. This is like a very simple definition. So the left side of the body is considered the female side, the right side is the masculine side. So every day these energies are moving through you, right? So when it comes to divine feminine, women tend to be a little bit more in touch with their divine feminine side. Doesn't necessarily mean that a man isn't, right? Right. And so the divine feminine is so easy. It's just about love. Right. That's it. It's so simple. It's the compassion, it's the empathy, it's the forgiveness. All spiritual practices and even religious practices, because I've practiced Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Tantra, all of it, right? Everything is about love. I see you, you see me, right? But then the ego gets in the way, the anger gets in the way. Maybe, for me, because of the way I was brought up, I had little confidence, and that means I was a natural people pleaser and really bad with boundaries. And so, I had to learn all of that, right? And when I started learning it, like right now, I've been telling my friends, I was like, I don't even know if I'm spiritual anymore, because I don't even know what spiritual actually means, right? But I think it could be is being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation where maybe somebody has done something bad to you and you actually begin to forgive them, right? That would be very divine feminesque and probably Mary Magdalene-esque in a way, and this takes out the sex part, the taboo part, very simple, very basic, the divine. But all this takes work, everybody, so many people I know, and even, by young people in their 20s and 30s, everybody's struggling with a sense of who am I? Why am I here? What are my gifts? How do I share them? And the education system doesn't really promote that at all.
In fact, it's completely left-brained. I mean, there is no right brain. There is no value to having any sort of right brain, from what I gather anyway.
Right. And that could be a whole other conversation why we have such a drug culture, such a huge drug culture, because you're just numbing that disconnection to who you truly are. And I understand what that feels like, because, I've had to struggle with that for a long time. Doesn't mean I don't. It's just I have a different relationship with that part of myself. Again, it's like loving yourself unapologetically, because if you don't, like, who really is? Right? If we were all one, that too would be considered divine feminine. And there's so many aspects to it. When you go to India, it's all about the word and the offering and the temples, and everything's divine, but life is complicated. People are complicated everywhere, and so, but I hope I answered your question about the divine feminine.
No, I just wanted to kind of know your take on it, because I think that it's
I think about it all the time too, and I don't really have, I'm not even sure if that's my complete take, because I was actually listening to a talk about the divine feminine today, because I think there's many aspects to the divine feminine, like say often in relationships, because I've recently had this experience where you fall in love with a guy, he falls in love with you, and then things come up in the relationship, whether they're like abandonment issues or self-confident issues. And you usually, because the woman is got that defined natural formula already in her. She wants to do the intimacy work around it. And the guy's like, oh my God, and he's got like, oh my God, I get that intimacy and vulnerability is like really hard for me. Right. And so I'm not saying women don't have that issue either, but normally the female wants to go to that deeper soul level. It's all like, that's like second chakra into third chakra work. That's the deepest work. That's the most transformative work. So if people go to movies, is to see that type of
right.
That's why music is so important, because it can transform the soul, right? Like the right voice, the right note coming all together, it just brings in all that information. So it's an interesting subject, the divine feminine, because in these Shakti lineages, you're worshiping the divine mother, the great mother. You're worshiping the Shakti energy, and Shakti is just energy, right? It's like my body's moving, that's the Shakti, but the container is what is considered like the masculine part, right? That's the grounding part that holds the Shakti. So such esoteric, information. I actually think some of this would be more important for kids to learn about these skill sets in school, about understanding their multidimensional selves, their body, mind, and soul.
But who would teach it?
I don't know. Well, in India, they do teach yoga for the kids in school. I worked with an orphanage in southern India. I made another documentary about these orphan kids in India from the villages that that lived in this my friend had a orphanage for orphan kids. And I went to the school with the kids, and they were doing yoga. So I met the yoga teacher, so it's not that uncommon. And I think even here in the United States, there's alternative education. I mean, there's so much happening.
I used to teach children's yoga, actually. Interestingly enough, that was one of my many iterations of my life of teaching. It was a huge learning experience for me. But
the kids naturally have presence awareness, like they already are the yoga, and I know in India the what I was taught is the pituitary gland in children isn't fully developed or something like that. So that's why they're able to have this huge imagination, and they can see things that we can't see as adults. Like they actually really do see the ghosts. They actually really do see, the starships and the aliens and everything. And they see their playmates really there. And then once the pituitary gland starts to develop, all that starts to diminish, and then the ego develops. So by the time they're 12 or 13 in India, they do a very sacred puja as an initiation, because once the ego starts to develop, then it's another threshold of understanding the human, like who you are as a human, because you have to have the ego, because in some ways it's kind of like the shadow part. You have to understand the duality of everything. So
wow, that's neat. That's something our culture's missing too, is sacred rites of passage.
That's all these earth-based, ancient rituals, and that's what we're lacking, I think, is rituals too, and that's why I think these festivals have really popped up in the last 10-15 years, and people are looking for rituals and community and a way to be connected. Everything's about connection, connecting to the tree, connecting to yourself, connecting to your kids.
Well, that is a great segue into my last question for you here, is that can you share how we can connect with you? How do we get to see all of these wonderful documentaries that you've made?
I have a website, and it's Romanski Films, like Roman, ROMANSKI films.com, and you can learn about my filmmaking and my photography, and
Is that the best way to kind of follow?
Yeah, I mean, I have an Instagram, I have a TikTok, I'm on Facebook, but you can find all that on my website. Yeah.
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 Cool. It was so nice catching up with you, Julianne. Thank you so much for agreeing
Welcome.
to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, have a great day, and keep doing the good work. I'm excited to see more of the stuff you've made or that you're about to complete. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you will. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, whatever your service offers you as a way to engage and let others know that you're enjoying it so it gets shared with more people. For all news updates on what I am doing, you can go to my website, portersinger.com, sign up for my mailing list, and get a free track as a thank you. All right, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.